The hospital never said his name out loud. Not because they didn't know it, but because everyone did. He was the kind of man whose presence alone could silence a room. A figure whispered about in corridors, in police briefings, and in the darker corners of the city. A man who had built an empire not on business deals or boardrooms, but on power, fear, and control. And now he lay still. The accident had been brutal. A high-speed crash in the dead of night, rumors of betrayal swirling around it. Some said it wasn't an accident at all. Others claimed it was long overdue karma. But none of that mattered anymore. Because now he was just a patient. Machines kept him alive. Tubes ran through his body. His chest rose and fell rhythmically, but there was no sign of consciousness. Doctors labeled it a deep coma, uncertain recovery, minimal response. Security outside his room was tighter than most government buildings. Armed guards rotated shifts. Visitors were strictly controlled. Even hospital staff avoided eye contact when entering. Except her. She was new. A nurse transferred from another department, quiet, observant, and strangely unafraid. While others saw a monster, she saw a human being trapped inside a silent prison. The first time she entered his room, she noticed something others hadn't. Loneliness. Despite the guards, the machines, and the power he once held, there was no one sitting beside him. No family. No friends. No voices calling him back. Just silence. And something about that silence didn't sit right with her. So the next night she brought a book. Not because she was told to. Not because it was protocol. But because she believed something most people didn't. That even in unconsciousness, the mind listens. And so she began reading. Softly at first. Unsure. Testing the waters. No reaction. But she came back the next night. And the next. And the next. Until it became a ritual. Something that would slowly change everything. At first, it felt strange. Reading aloud to someone who couldn't respond, couldn't react, couldn't even acknowledge her presence. The room absorbed her words like a void. No feedback. No connection. But she continued. Every night after her shift officially ended, she would return. Pull a chair close to his bedside. Open a book. And begin. She didn't choose medical texts or motivational speeches. Instead, she picked stories, simple human stories. Tales of adventure, childhood memories, fictional worlds, and quiet emotional moments. Stories that had nothing to do with violence. Nothing to do with power. Nothing to do with who he used to be. At first, she read for him. But slowly, she realized she was reading for herself too. The hospital was exhausting. Long hours, emotional strain, endless cycles of life and death. But in that room, with that one silent listener, something felt different. Peaceful. Like she had stepped outside the chaos. The other staff noticed. They whispered about her. Why waste time? He can't hear you. It's pointless. But she ignored them. Because something inside her insisted it wasn't pointless. And then small things began to happen. Subtle. Almost invisible. A slight twitch in his finger. A faint change in breathing rhythm. The smallest flicker of something alive. Doctors dismissed it as reflex. But she wasn't convinced. She leaned closer when she read now. Her voice softer. More intentional. As if she was speaking directly to him, not just into the void. And one night, she changed the story. Instead of reading from a book, she told him something personal. A memory from her childhood. A story about fear. About overcoming it. About finding light in darkness. And as she spoke, the room felt different. He didn't move. But something shifted. Something subtle, but undeniable. She felt it. And from that moment on, she knew. This wasn't just routine anymore. This was a connection. It was past midnight. The hospital had settled into its quiet rhythm. Distant footsteps, faint machine beeps, the hum of fluorescent lights. She entered the room like always. Same chair, same book. But something felt off. Not wrong, just different. She couldn't explain it. She began reading anyway. Her voice steady, calm, almost hypnotic. Minutes passed. Then something happened. At first she thought she imagined it. A shift. A movement.
She paused.
Silence. Then suddenly, a hand shot up, grabbing her wrist.
Tight.
Unmistakable.
Real.
Her breath caught instantly. The book slipped from her other hand. Her entire body froze. This wasn't a reflex. This wasn't random. He was holding her. His grip was strong, controlled,
Alive.
She slowly looked up. His eyes were still closed, but his hand didn't let go. Panic and disbelief collided inside her. Every instinct screamed to pull away, to call for help, to run. But she didn't, because something deeper held her in place. Curiosity. And something else, recognition. As if somehow he knew she was there. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then slowly his grip loosened. His hand fell back onto the bed. Stillness returned, like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. She stood there, heart racing, trying to process what she had just experienced. Then she did something unexpected. She picked the book back up, sat down again, and continued reading, her voice slightly shaken, but determined. Because now she knew he wasn't gone. He was listening. The next morning, everything changed. Doctors were called in urgently. Monitors showed irregular activity, something they hadn't seen before. Brain responses, signals, awareness. Within hours, the room filled with specialists. Scans were taken. Tests were repeated. Security tightened even further. Word spread quickly. The man everyone thought might never wake up was showing signs of returning. And at the center of it all stood one quiet nurse. She didn't say much, but she knew. That moment, the grip, the connection, it wasn't random. It was the beginning. Over the next few days, progress accelerated. Finger movements became intentional. Eye flickers turned into brief openings. And then, he woke up. Slowly.
Confused. Disoriented.
But awake. The room that once held silence was now filled with tension. Doctors monitored every word, every reaction. Guards stood ready. Because the man who had returned wasn't just any patient. He was power.
Danger. Control.
But when his eyes finally focused, they didn't search for the guards. Or the doctors. They searched for her. And when she stepped forward, something unexpected happened. The fear everyone expected wasn't there. Instead, there was recognition.
Calm.
And something almost human. He couldn't speak much at first.
His voice weak. Broken.
But the first clear words he formed weren't orders, weren't threats. They were simple. You stayed. And in that moment, something shifted, not just in him, but in everyone watching. Because the man they feared had been reached, not by force, not by power, but by something far more unexpected.
Compassion.
Recovery wasn't easy. Physically, he was strong, but mentally something had changed. The doctors noticed it first. He was quieter, less reactive, more observant. Gone were the aggressive outbursts they had anticipated. Instead, there was restraint,
Control.
thoughtfulness. But the biggest change showed when she entered the room. Every time, without fail, his focus shifted. Not in a possessive or intimidating way, but in a grounded, almost reflective manner.
They spoke more now.
Short conversations at first, then longer ones. He asked about the stories she read.
He remembered them.
Details, emotions, moments, proof that even in silence he had been there, listening,
Processing.
changing. And slowly, a different narrative began to form. Not about a feared boss, but about a man confronting himself,
His past.
his choices, the life he had built, and the life he nearly lost. No one could fully explain it, but one thing became clear. Something in those nights, those stories, that voice, that presence, had reached a part of him no one else ever had. A part untouched by power or fear. A part still human. And as weeks turned into months, the city began to notice something strange. Operations slowed. Conflicts reduced. Decisions changed. Not dramatically, but noticeably. As if somewhere behind the scenes, a different kind of leadership had emerged. And at the center of that transformation was a quiet nurse who chose to read. when no one else would.